Okay.
Okay, good afternoon, my name is Natalie Barbosa and I'm here to talk to you about novelty detection. I will do so by first showing you some basics of our novelty detection, that is, what is novelty detection, why we should focus on that, and how we do it. Next, we're going to see some approaches to novelty detection, that's statistical approaches and non-statistical or neural network approaches. What is novelty detection? Well, novelty detection is the identification of new behavior in system or plant models. Usually when you model a system or when you try to control it by process data, you don't have in the data all the possible scenarios of behavior. For example, in a process plant, you will usually not have data about failures, of big failures, breakdowns or something like that, but even though you need to understand them and you need to identify them in the moment when this behavior shows. Novelty detection is one of the fundamental requirements that had a good classification feature or identification system. There is no a single best model to make novelty detection. That's why there's been a currently research interesting field. There are a lot of techniques that are in the process of development to achieve novelty detection. What is the peculiarity of this methodology? This methodology had several applications. The first one, like I said before, in process plant, when you need to identify a failure even when the failure has not been present before. But it can also be used in a number of applications. For example, signal processing or image analysis. In the field of image analysis, this is currently hardly used in cancer identification. This figure here we have mammographies, and these techniques are currently used for detecting anomalies in the mammographies in order to reveal a possible cancer of mass. The complexity in this case is increased by multiple classes, or that is, you don't only have something like normal behavior and abnormal. Normal behavior can be defined by several features, by several classes that involves high dimensionality in the data, and also we have several noisy features, that is, not always in image or not always in process history the data are clean. Usually it is loaded with a lot of noise, or at least a minimum amount of noise. And it's usual also that we don't have enough samples to train the models, so we have to work in detecting something that not necessarily have been seen before, or not necessarily with the adequate frequency. What are important issues related to novelty detection? There are several features that you must ideally guarantee in novelty detection. The first one is the principle of Rosenet and trade-off. That is, you have to detect, to increase the amount of true positives and true negatives, but without increasing also the number of false negative and false positive detections. The principle of uniform data scanning. The data from training and from testing had to be have to lie in the same range with the proper normalization. Principle of parameter minimization. That is, you have to be able to detect the novelties without the minimum amount of features, as less as possible. Principle of generalization. You have to be able to find some data hasn't been presented before as normal behavior if it is a generalization of the behavior from the usual behavior of the system and doesn't have to be detected as a novelty behavior. Independence from features and from unbounded classes, and also is have to be able to adapt if he recognizes novel data in the training stage. You have to be able to learn from this data and use it in the future. Finally, it has to be as less as computational expensive as it possible. Which are the approaches to novelty detection? Currently, there are two main approaches, that is statistical approaches and non-statistical approaches. In the statistical approaches, these are based on the estimation of the density probability function. And these are also branched in two classes, that is parametric or non-parametric detection. In the parametric detection, you make an initial assumption that this data distribution are Gaussian in nature, so it can be modeled by means and covariance. In the non-parametric, this assumption is not longer viable, and the distribution of the data has to be found by the algorithm. The parametric approaches there are several parametric approaches. The more important approaches are Gaussian mixed models, hidden Markov models, hypothesis testing, and statistic classifiers. In the image, we see a hidden Markov model, that is, we model the behavior of the plant from like some stage and some changes between the stage. There is a known, these stages are the observable stage of the plant, but the transition between the stage can camouflage some unobservable behavior. And what this said is that even when we don't have the ability to observe all the stage in the system, we can model it by knowing the statistics behind the observable stages. The currently most used approach in parametrical is the statistical classifiers. The statistical classifiers made a division between the data points in order that classes can be found easily. In this case, for example, you can find a linear division, that is just finding a line that divides the two sets of data, or a quadratic if that can be divided by a parabol or an ellipsoid. And the piecewise linear is just crossing different lines or planes in order to separate all the data in different classes. The non-parametric approaches, more known as is the K-nearest neighbor, Pearson density, string matching, and clustering methods. K-nearest neighbor is illustrated here in this image. What is that? It's just finding finding if the data is novel or not by analyzing and comparing with the testing data that is nearest to the current position of the training data. That is, you have a point and you have to test if it's novel or not. You look for similar data in the training set, and you will assign the tag that have the K-nearest neighbor in the training set. The clustering methods are the most commonly used method in this case. The clustering methods use the statistics about the distribution of the data, but without restraining to a current type of distribution. They can use the Euclidean form in order to create the spheres or hyperspheres, the diagonal norm to create hyperellipsoids, or the Magellan norm in order to rotate these hyperellipsoids. These changes in the description of the classes makes that the class fits better in the data that contains inside it. These kind of distributions can be used, for example, if you have faulty behaviors and you have these faulty behaviors are known, you can represent them by some classes, some groups. But even in the case when you have several fault knowns, there will be always outliers, that is behavior that is not known. That's the kind of behavior that have to be rejected or characterized as novelty behavior. What are the non-statistical approaches? Well, non-previous statistical information is assumed in this case. You don't know if the data have density distribution, you don't know if what are the standard deviation, you don't know anything of that, and you don't care. That's the main feature of these approaches. The two more used approaches are neural networks and supervector machines. In neural networks, what you have is that you have layers of neurons. This is called like that from the similarity with the way that our brains work. You have different layers of neurons, and each layer will have a relation with all the neurons in the layer before, and this relation will be affected by some functions that can be or cannot be linear. Neural networks have the advantage that can reproduce almost any behavior. That's why they're also hardly and commonly used for pattern recognition. But it also has a problem, that is that neural networks tend to overfit data. That is, you create as much neurons as you can, because, well, it's easy, but when you use it, you will have a neuron, like for each data, a different neuron. What's the problem with that? That you lost the generalization. So when a new data comes that is not in the training set, it will be, the network will be confused and won't recognize the data come as a member of the current classes, but also won't assign it into a novel class. In neural network, there are several approaches that are trying to fight against this overfitting problem. This is multivariate perceptron, is a widely used neural network approach, but the adaptive resonancy, radial basis, and oscillatory networks makes an effort to assign new data or novel data into a new category and then relearn from that new information. So these are, well, actually the approaches that works better with novelty detection. Supervector machines, by the other way, they are based on structural risk minimization. All the previous approaches were based on risk minimization with no structure. This is the only approach that uses structural risk minimization. What do you gain with that? What's the main feature here? Well, what the authors do with this is that they search for hypotheses that guarantees the lowest probability error. That is, for example, in a plane with a lot of data, you have to find the line that not only separates the data, but maximizes the separation between the data. This is in 2 dimensions, but it also works in any dimensional spaces, and supervector machines can be used even if at the beginning they were used only for linear separation cases. They now use also non-linear supervector machines to separate different kind of data by means of transforming them into a new space where all the data are linearly separable. So this is the summary of the presentation. You see, we in the presentation see what's novelty detection, what can be done by these techniques, what is the applicability of the methodology, what are the important issues related to novelty detection, and also what are the approaches to novelty detection, that is statistical and non-statistical approaches. And that's it. Thank you very much.
Okay, very good.
Thank you very much.
Any questions?
Yeah. Why you will use novelty detection?
You use it when you have a problem that is not known entirely. For example, when you have a system, any system, and there is some parts of the system that you know and that you can model by physical laws, but there are also a behavior that is not modeled, but that can be found in practice. And the important feature here is that in many cases, mostly in industrial cases or in real life cases, you will find that some data, or you will find in practice something that you haven't considered in theory or when you were fitting your model or something like that. In industry, you have a model for a year, and you know how it's supposed to work when it's working fine and when it's maybe a little bit used. But if you suffer from a suddenly rupture, you hadn't modeled that because that wasn't supposed to happen. And if it happens, you don't have data enough to model how is the way this happened. But even though your system should know that this is a novelty case and should generate an alarm to help the operator in order to find what is the current situation of the process.
But you have a case or where you will to use this methodology?
Specifically, I will use it from fault detection, because in faults, when you have a system that is not modeled strictly by physics, by law physics, but instead you describe the system from the process history data, you will find that in the training set, that is the data that you have to train and to learn from, there are several situations that they are not there. Like in process plant, well, in oil transportation, that is what I'm going to work, pipe rupture or leaking or changing in the density of the oil transported because of soil or dirt or something like that. These are not the data is available. This is a situation that they are not frequent enough to be in the training set. So you have to be aware of that and detecting and generating alarms in order that the operator use that is called health maintenance. Is maintenance, but it's not a maintenance that is fixed in time, but is risk dependent. So if you find that your process is near to a risk of something bad happen, then you make a maintenance. If the risk is less, well, this can be done in the month maintenance or in the year maintenance, or this have to this thing needs maintenance right now, and it has to be an alert created for that.
Oh, okay, thank you.
That's thank you.
All right, thank you very much.
Sí, me enamoré, vamos a un partido y yo corro.